Okay, so today we're here to talk about how to do a better job of advertising your SCA event. I am in the SCA, Signora Caterina da Savona, and I hail from the Barony of Dragon's Lair, where we have some fairly big events every year, and we learned advertising the hard way. So, first of all, why would you bother? At a bare minimum, we need to get enough people in the door for the event to break even. We hope to encourage the populace to be involved and excited. A bardic competition without an audience is not nearly as much fun as one that has an active audience. We want to help our attendees prepare. We want this to be a successful, fun experience. We want them to have the things that are essential. We want them to not bring a bunch of stuff they're not allowed to use. And we really are looking towards the future and future SCA members because we need their first event to be reasonably positive. Advertising. We're adding another job to the already busy work of an event steward. Isn't it a lot of work? Kind of. But we already have this idea that many hands make light work. We already have feast stewards that take care of the feast. We have marshals in charge that organize all of the combat activities and so forth. I suggest that we also make advertising a specific, unique job, and you have an advertising lead who takes care of this on behalf of the event steward, at least for larger, more complex events. I'm going to break this down then into 4 chapters. Chapter 1, we do need to talk about the rules, the SCA policies that will affect your advertising. Chapter 2, a very quick overview to some of the most common platforms. Chapter 3, best practices for running an online ad campaign. And then finally, we'll put it all together with a sample event. It's a lot to cover, so let's get started. There is a reference document for this. It's a living document, and we'll update it as we learn more, and it is hosted on the Dragon's Lair Baronial website. We have a QR code and the link here. Chapter 1. I'm going to focus mostly on the Kingdom of Antir where I am, but I will call out things that are kingdom specific. Where I know them, I will tell you about analogous systems in other kingdoms, and I will focus really heavily on things that are true for the society as a whole. One problem with advertising I've found is that there is no guide. There's a paragraph here, a sentence there, scattered across many, many guidance documents. But starting at the top, events that are going to affect society standing, like awards or kingdom-level officer changes, have to be published in the Kingdom Newsletter by SCA policy. The Kingdom Newsletter. Now, Antir, and we're not alone in this, requires you to get it into the Kingdom calendar before you can put it in the newsletter. But not everything is an event. Events for the SCA are defined in this way. They have a site fee. That fee has a member discount. Some people call it the non-member registration fee. And they require some attempt at pre-1600, 1650 clothing. We do a lot of things that are not events and which this policy does not even apply to. Activities, functions. Let's say you have a half-day arts and science day camp by donation, no one wears garb, and it's just a bunch of informal classes. That's not an event with a capital E. Fighter practice, regular meetings, guild meetings, event planning meetings, demos that are free, demos that are hosted anywhere besides the SCA, none of these are events with a capital E. They're activities. The policy for these is to simply announce them to your local populace in whatever way works best for your branch. I suggest that you put it somewhere public on the website, not in a private inward-facing group, and that you may put it in a couple of locations. We do have a gray zone. Official business meetings should have their time and location published on your public website. I made a quick chart. It is in the reference document to help break this down. Again, this is a little bit for Antir. You need to have your local events published in the newsletter for 1 month before the event, but the newsletter copy goes in a month before that. This dates back to when newsletters were actually printed and mailed, and they had to be in the mailbox of the populace by the first of the month that they applied to. So you're starting really early on some of these things. Another interesting point is that all of your Facebook events should be hosted not by your group, but by the official SCA Facebook page for your branch. And whether that's a kingdom or a local branch depends on the scale of the meeting that you're using. And we're going to talk a bit about Facebook because right now that's where the SCA is leaning, but this needs to change or will change in the future. We also have a bunch of required disclaimers. This comes from the SCA. Facebook events where you're setting them up have to have this basic boilerplate disclaimer. You can copy and paste it from the social media handbook or from my reference document. And other than that, your kingdom website, calendar sites, newsletters, and things like that are all being handled by officers. The web minister, the chronicler, they're taking care of those for you. Antier adds an additional text to Facebook events, talking about SCA core values, harassment, and bullying. This is really impossible to find if you live in Antier until you step up as a social media officer. You get access to the private Facebook social media officer group and you dig through the files section. You will never see this policy. Trust me, I tried to find it. Again, it's in the reference document. I found it. You don't have to. This is the SCA version of the same, a harassment and bullying statement that needs to be on printed materials on site and displayed at gate. If you're doing an online event with any sort of recording, there are a couple of additional disclaimers having to do with copyright assignment and with the permissions to do recording. Those are all the disclaimers. Something you may not know because it's buried in SCA guidance for seneschals and web ministers. We are required by policy to protect people's modern, personally identifiable information on public-facing web products. Modern name, home address, work address, phone numbers, and personal emails. You have to have written permission to use those. Email permission is fine. You need to save it and keep it on file just like it was a grant of use form. And here's a quirk. If you are getting permission to use someone's personal email, that permission must be emailed from the email they're giving you permission to use. That makes sense, I hope. And this is a really important thing to keep in mind when you're doing advertising. That's pretty much all we have to deal with as far as the rules. Let's talk a little bit about platforms because, golly, there's a lot of them. We have the printed newsletters, which now are more PDF than printed, but they're still holding on to that printed format. The websites, Antier loves WordPress. Your kingdom or branch might be doing something different, but WordPress is really common. Of course, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, YouTube, blah, blah, blah. Again, this is specific to Antier's Kingdom Calendar because you have to put the calendar request in before you're allowed to do the newsletter, before you're allowed to set up any sort of social media. Do it fast. As soon as you have a date, an event steward, and a location you are in, just do save the date. A reminder again, the Kingdom newsletter, you need to plan 2-3 months in advance. And what that means, if you're the event steward or you're the advertiser reminding the event steward, you really need to start figuring out things like your cost and your location at least 3 months in advance so that you're ready. And you'll notice in Antier, these are basically like classified ads. They have really basic information. They have a short blurb. They may include a link to your website about the event. Strongly recommended, especially now that we've gone PDF and people can just click on those. I've seen other kingdoms where these are shown as actual half-page or quarter-page advertising banners, like if you were to put a printed flyer up the library, they've miniaturized that, and that is what you submit to your kingdom newsletter. Remember, if you miss the deadline for the newsletter, you might be okay if that event is not going to have any awards that affect society standing. Most of our events do. We love to have court, and so it's not an ideal thing. By policy, your local branch, whatever that might be, has to have at least one event per year large enough to go in the Kingdom newsletter. You may have more. You must have at least one Kingdom published, readily accessible event. This is all the SCA requires. But in this lovely census that we have from just a few years ago, nearly 35% of respondents admitted that they either did not get or did not read their Kingdom newsletter. That is 1 out of 3 Scadians who have no idea what your event is doing. More than 2/3 are using social media every day for the SCA. And if you're using it weekly, if we include everyone using it weekly, it's almost everyone. So social media is your best bet if you're trying again to either fill the hall or to make your event minimums so that you break even. We're going to start by talking about Facebook. If you do an event page, again, the TLDR version is just get your local social media officer to help if at all possible. They'll set it up, posted by the page. They'll make sure it's publicly viewable. That's the one thing you cannot change after you make the event. If you screw up the visibility on day one, you have to delete the event and start all over. Try not to do that. And they'll make sure you have all the correct disclaimers. You will need to help them monitor it for internet bad actors, but your SMO can be your backup plan here. And what you'll do is after they set up your page, ask to be a co-host. They'll have to be your friend on Facebook. They will send you an invite. You will accept the invite. And now you can edit the description. You can make posts on your own page. You can respond to comments and everything else. Why are we talking about Facebook? Facebook is aging. The average age of the Facebook users, our median is in the mid-40s, but the median age for the SCA is in the mid-50s. So it's not really surprising. But if we're looking to the future, the long-term sustainable future of an all-volunteer organization, we might need to reach out and to look at some of these other platforms that have a younger average user base. Discord, on average, is at least a decade younger and can mimic many of the same things we get from Facebook. Instagram and TikTok are the youngest of all. So if we're looking to the future, you may want to do a little bit of advertising outside of Facebook. Now most of this talk is going to be about focusing advertising to the SCA for the SCA. But if you're talking about a public demo, Dragon's Lair has a massive public demo every summer called June Fair or the Kitsap Medieval Fair that has its own advertising team. It's so big. And they are using a billboard on the side of the road. We have listings in the local community events calendars, the local newspaper. It's shared to some of the Chamber of Commerce, the Tourism Board. Think about where people are, especially who are going to be interested in medieval history or history in general. Think about your gamers, think about maybe your LARPers, think about the people that do pirate things and Viking things. And maybe they're not super historical on the day that they start, but they have a space to grow as they mature in their interests. Just a thought. Most bang for your buck for a lot of things, a 30-second video promo in the little upright phone scale of 9:16 can be used on basically every platform. Little bit of work, every platform, even the young ones. Even with all of that, we're still using printed materials on site because we still need them. Not all site has maybe great internet, but especially if we're talking about maps or signage to say arts and science is over here, heavy tournament is over there, it can be really helpful. Or schedule grids. Posting schedule grids next to the rooms that are going to have events in them or next to the tents or outside of them is really helpful. Remember that you're going to need that mandatory harassment and bullying disclaimer at gate, so print that out. You might use QR codes to point people with cell phones to your event website with all the details if you're in a place with really good internet service. And you can actually get free advertising after the fact by putting suggested Instagram hashtags on some of your event materials and your signage on site. So we can do some fun things just with printed paper. Okay, we've done that. We have some event pages. Now you actually need to populate them with stuff. And this is where we get into best practices. Short format. It mostly refers to social media. Social media is really good at bite-sized bits of information. Websites are really good at the full meal, so we're going to pair those to get the most out of each one. We're going to use lots of pictures, we're going to make sure that we are cell phone friendly, and we're going to do a lot of standalone messages, hashtags on the platforms that like hashtags, and then finally monitor for comments. This is what's going to kill you. Tildeer. Too long, didn't read. I don't care what it is, if people see a wall of text that is on social media or it's not broken down well on the website with headers or some sort of indexing, their little brains, God bless them, are just going to shut right off and they're going to click through to something more interesting looking. This is reality, especially with social media. You have 140, maybe 180 characters, depending on the platform, to get their attention before everything else gets buried under the See More link. They will not see that text unless they're interested enough to click. It's going to show your post to a lot of people and maybe some of their friends, but not every person will see every post. And not everyone will use the same platform. Especially, we have a lot of people now that are starting to object to Facebook because of their many extremely well-publicized problems with privacy. But anyone that does like or share your post is going to bump you up in the algorithm, and people will see it that otherwise wouldn't. But it's really easy for that post, conversely, to get separated from its original source and for people to have no idea what event it's even talking about. So we have to be careful. Your website is not splashy and cute and sexy in the same way that social media is. It is the meal. It is designed to display and organize a bunch of information. It works on every kind of browser, every kind of platform. There's no signing up for accounts. There's no having to use a specific service. So I recommend you have one event website that you pick and maintain very well as the one-stop shopping experience for everything about your event. Whether you choose this to do on Kingdom Calendar or your local official SCA website, either one is viable according to policy. In Antir, by practice, the calendar team would like you to put everything there. But by policy, it needs to be on any official SCA website. Here's some examples of the See More link that is cutting off a lot of information in this post, but what's left behind is this great splashy picture and enough information that we know behind the See More link what we're going to find, and if we want to know who the teachers are, we know we have to click the button. Here we have Aquaterra. I love this. They just tildered it right at the top and put in a 6-7 word description. This is what the whole post is about. Now we proceed with the details. Or Antir Westwar, again, preload the content, and then the link might be a little buried behind the See More, but that's okay. You're going to be writing like you may have once been told to write for newspapers. You need to preload the punchline in the first sentence, 2 at the tops. Here we have one out of Dragon's Lair from our Kitsap Medieval Fair advertising team last summer. Lots and lots of words on the picture, so it doesn't really matter that Facebook has cut off almost all of their text. And that is a workaround. Social media loves pictures. It will always show the picture. It rarely crops the picture. I'll give you a couple examples later what you need to watch out for. But mostly it shows the whole picture, and it is a way of getting actual words to your actual audience. This is an example from the Harvest Feast last year where we needed to get the schedule out there so that people would know when the different presentations for the competitions were. And this is a cover image from the same thing, using a historical picture from manuscript. Because we need images, but you also then need to think about copyright law and what images you are allowed to use. In general, historical manuscripts or photos from museum exhibits are very friendly to nonprofits, which is what we are. They will have instructions somewhere on the website with specific terms of use. Usually they want attribution. They want you to link it back or tell people where you got it from. Even if they don't require it, I recommend you should do it anyways. We are a society of crazy history buffs, and if you put up a lovely historical thing, someone is going to ask you where you found it or what it is. You might as well just put it in the link up front and get ahead of that question. You can also get images or images of artwork made by modern Scadians. In that case, you must use the SCA forms, which are in the Release Forms Handbook. An individual can post their own photos and their own work on social media without a form, but for us as event stewards or advertisers to post on their behalf, we need to have permission, a photographer release form. If it's a whole big article, we might need an article release form, or if there's someone in it in a portrait style, we might even need a model release form. So get those. Your webminister is responsible for keeping these and archiving them long term, and that is why you see the little webminister icon on this particular graphic. Here's a fun one though. The SCA has a digital scribes program. This is basically a collection of photographers who've gotten together and said, yes, we will write a blanket, really generic grant of use form for anyone in the SCA to use the pictures in this gallery for SCA websites and social media purposes. Pretty cool, really nice. If you haven't done it already, you might consider standing up a similar thing for your kingdom or for your branch. Have a few people that love to take pictures kindly write you a blanket grant of use that says whatever pictures I give you for the website, you can use for the website, literally, and then encourage them to become part of your social media or your web team in an indirect way. Finally, we have Creative Commons licensing. This is what you're going to see on a lot of wiki and similarly kind of public-facing documents. There are 6 types of Creative Commons licenses, but in a nutshell, if you are a nonprofit, which we are, and you do not adapt and alter their work, you can use all 6 of them. They all require attribution. You have to say where you got it from, and you need to describe or include a little information about the license. There's a lot of images, though, out there with Creative Commons, and it can give you some good sources. Once you have your image, now you need to think about image sizes because platform. We no longer talk really about absolute pixel sizes because your image is going to be shown on everything from a 60-inch television to a 3-inch telephone or phone screen. And so instead, we talk about width to height ratios now. The cover image, that's the image I showed you earlier. It is a very wide, kind of narrow image that is either at the top of a website or the top of an event page in Facebook. Generally, these are a little bit under 2:1. Facebook loves to crop these to fit. So please do put any important text in your cover image, kind of mush it into the middle to make sure that Facebook doesn't do something helpful. 16:9 for YouTube, you can have cover images for long videos. Shorts don't have that choice. Regular post images, generally you're dealing with 4:3 or 1:1. I recommend dealing with 1:1 because it shows better on Insta, and Facebook now does a really good job of handling it, although all of the platforms have now gotten pretty good about 4:3. 3:4 gets a little dicey, generally wider than they are tall unless you're on a phone. And like I mentioned, if you're going to do a short video for promo purposes, if you keep it under 60 seconds and it's in that nice vertical phone version, you can do it anywhere. And again, that is in the reference document. So let's go back and look at my cover image. I have a historical manuscript image. The reference is in the event description. We have who's hosting, what it is, when it is, and enough information that people can get a sense for what kind of event it is so they know to click the button if they're interested. Here are some examples of posts. Posts are best as standalone images where the image tells the entire story by itself, or they're really good to put in words that cannot be buried by the platform. Also, in the text at the top of them, you get extra bonus points with Facebook's algorithm if you lead with a question. And on the right, I've highlighted with my highlighter tool what the first 140 characters are. So I know if the if the platform decides to truncate this down to the worst case scenario, 140 characters, what people will see, and it's adequate. The information gets through. And finally, the detailed information lives on the website. I'm not going to put the entire ingredients list on the Facebook post. I'm going to put it on the website. As well, you want to think about being mobile friendly. Facebook usually takes care of this because more than 80% of US Facebook users are on their phone. But think about your website too. Look at your WordPress when you're setting it up and have a quick look at it on your desktop and your phone to make sure, especially like here where I have 2 different content boxes that are side by side, that they look okay. They're not doing anything quirky. If you're going to do downloadables, please use PDFs. Not DocX, not Google Docs, not Word Docs, nothing where you have to sign up for an account or pay money or have a special app, just PDF. And the same thing for images, JPEG and PNG are generally your most universal kind. So be friendly, be kind, think about the fact that people may have more or less computer equipment than you have. Now, you need to get people to see it. Social media algorithm. You are popular because you are popular. Well, guess what? At first, you're not popular at all. No one knows about your event. No one has seen your event. No one has liked your event. And it puts it really low in the priorities of what people are going to see. So what you can do is to click this little tiny arrow that you'll see and share your event to your populous local groups and perhaps your adjacent baronies. We have, from Dragon's Lair, I have 5 baronies that share a border, although 2 of them have to take the ferry, which is quite expensive, so we don't see them very much. But I have 3 baronies in close driving range, plus a canton that is underneath our umbrella that may want to know about and will often come to our events. So get it out there, share it with the people that you want to come or that were willing to come. However, please only share Facebook events on Facebook, not on the internet at large, not on Discord, not anywhere else, because this is what happens if you do, and somebody who isn't a Facebook user tries to click on your link. It's pretty awkward. Facebook uses tracking cookies, and if people aren't logged in, it is not kind. What you can do then, is, since you have your one-stop shopping event website that we already talked about, you share that link instead. Now, posts for social media are essential. They're going to be what generate excitement, but they're going to be random. People are going to see it. Some people are going to see some of your stuff. Maybe not everybody, and certainly they're not going to see everything, and they may not see them in order, and they might see it today, or they might see it a week from now. And sometimes the link back to the event gets lost. And so if you write a post that says pre-registration closes Friday, and they see it next week on Wednesday, they're kind of in trouble. If you write a post that says pre-registration closes Friday, August 9th, then they know. So think about that. Try to include the name of the event and the date, or enough information that if it gets orphaned, people can figure out what it's about. And again, use that share button on some of those posts to get the most important things like pre-registration is open directly to the populace. Don't count on them finding it only through the Facebook event feed, because it's not great about that. And then you can post regularly to keep the excitement up, and you can schedule these. Best trick ever. You can click on this adorable little tiny calendar and you can pre-schedule a lot of your advertising campaign when it's convenient for you. And if something changes, you need to change it later, you need to edit it, you can go back in to edit them, although it is hard to do on a phone and easy to do on a larger desktop or laptop. So do be aware of that. I do not use hashtags on Facebook because it is not indexed in such a way as to make them useful. But other platforms that use hashtags, absolutely jump in. People will follow hashtags, not just individual accounts, and it will give them an opportunity to see something that otherwise might not cross their feed. You might use place-based hashtags to find your local community. You might do something about your hobby, whether it's specific to the SCA or generic to medieval. Medieval costume, medieval fighting, medieval cooking. You might do something based on your activities, sword fighting. Quirky one here, Regram My SCA. First started during COVID. It didn't get a lot of publicity, but this hashtag specifically gives SCA social media officers permission to regram. That means to copy, paste, share with attribution the original post on Instagram without any paperwork. No grant of use forms. So this is a nice thing. Again, you can encourage your photographers to use this hashtag. Finally, no matter what platform you're on, please monitor it regularly for comments. We're still using Facebook really heavily, and Facebook is terrible at telling you that you have a comment if you're a co-host. It basically doesn't tell you. So please monitor every few days. Same thing with Discord. If someone doesn't click reply to you, but just replies in the thread without tagging you, you're going to need to look that up yourself. If you have someone causing trouble, bad actors, internet trolls, your social media officer, or if you don't have one locally, your seneschal is there to help back you up and manage them according to SCA policy. What we see the most in Dragon's Lair on events are people who are trying to scam by putting in fake links to pay money to sign up for space in our marketplace to sell things. And we need to grab them, get them down, and report them as quickly as possible before some poor vendor gets taken in. And often the biggest challenge for me as an advertising person who works with stewards but does not run the entire event is getting information. Maybe my steward is going to ask their event team to CC me on things. Maybe they're going to forward things to me. Maybe if I can't get to an in-person meeting, someone is going to give me their handwritten notes or a photograph of their handwritten notes. But you need to somehow get information. And I know this is hard for the stewards too. And sometimes it's a little bit of a culture shift to tell people it's okay to give me something preliminary. I don't need the entire tournament format yet. Just knowing that we're going to have a prize tournament is enough for me to get some advertising out there and raise interest. So it's also that realizing that this is going to be a work in progress. All right, this is a lot. How are you doing? Eyes crossing? It's a lot of background. It's a lot of detail. Again, there's a reference document, and you can always reach me. I do check my comments quite regularly. If you have questions, just pop them in the description, because we are going now to put it all together with sort of a sample campaign. We'll talk about the timeline for event advertising from maybe up to a year before until the last day. General principles: post early, post often. If you have a really important deadline, use more than one post. Highlight the good stuff. What are the biggest, best features of your event? Be kind to newcomers and anyone that has an accessibility challenge. And anticipate frequently asked questions and answer them in advance so that you don't waste loads of time answering the same thing 20 times over and over and over to different people. So we're going to start really early. Again, Antier, we have to do our calendar website before we're really allowed to do much of anything else. And so we're going to get that out the second I've got an event steward, a date, and a location. Save the date. We're going to do great stuff. Save the date. More details coming later. What you're going to need at this point is a cover photo and a short description of the event. If you're in a kingdom where your newsletter description has to be sort of more like a pretty full color advertisement, you're probably going to be using this as your foundation. If you're somewhere like Antier, you're going to be using your blurb about the event as your foundation. So you're doing work for two things with one go. And think a big picture right now. Get this out there, get it shared. All you want to do is get people to click that interested button. And I will tell you, it can be disconcerting. One thing we have learned, 200 people are going to click going or like or interested on Facebook, and like 80 are going to show up. So don't freak out if you actually succeed in getting people to click interested. They're not all actually going to come. Now, 3 months in advance, this is when we really need to start preparing for the newsletter. It means we need the cost, the hours that it's going to be open for the populace, not the hours for setup and breakdown, but the actual event hours, and a really good description for our newsletter. When you send that in, if you copy your branch web minister, you can ask them to update your local branch website. You can, in Antier, the event steward has to update the Kingdom calendar listing, but if you've given them good materials, they're just going to copy and paste it. And as a co-host of your own Facebook event, which you already asked the social media officer to set up for Save the Date, you can do it yourself. Now, at this point, you're not going to be doing a lot on social media. Every couple of weeks, you're going to have a little post about something big, like this is a tournament, this is an ANS event, we're going to have classes, we're going to have a feast, we're going to have a potluck. Be preliminary. It's okay to say updates are coming soon, or the feast theme is 16th century Ottoman Empire and the event team is working on the menu. Absolutely fine. You're better off to be soft and vague in the beginning than to promise something and change your mind later. As well, now that you have a site contract, think about accessibility and think about anything that's restricted or banned from the site. Get that on the event website right up front. This is going to affect whether some people can come. Is there ADA parking? Do we have stairs? Do we have a ramp? So get it out there early so they can make an informed decision. And this is a good time to think about preloading some instructions for newcomers. What do they need to bring to have a really good day? If it is your first SCA event, if it is your first feast, someone hopefully told you that you're supposed to bring a plate and some utensils and a cup and a bowl. If they told you to bring a feast kit, you probably had no idea what they were talking about. And so if you're writing the part you write for newcomers, please try to keep it either free of jargon or define the jargon and call it out so they understand that we speak a coded language like any group. Society is years and years old now. We're talking about decades, and it's built its own language. We need to help people break into that field. Most of your planning happens 1 to 3 months before the event. Pre-registration is probably one of the biggest ones as far as getting it communicated, getting people to see it, getting people to respond. I do at least 3 posts. It's open until a date, it's closing soon. I usually give people like a 1-week warning. And then after it closes, it's done. And this is what you should do if you miss the opportunity. Somebody will. And then in all of these, I have suggested some frequently asked questions that we have seen come up over and over and over again. They will be in the reference document. You can look at them there. But as soon as you say something opens, somebody wants to know when it closes. If you're asking about money, they want to know how and when they're supposed to pay. They want to know what happens if they miss it or what if they need to cancel. And if you have separate signups for the site, the camping, the fee, and everything else, people can be confused unless you help write good copy that clarifies, hey, this is cafeteria style. Sign up for what you want. Specifically then, if you have camping, in addition to all of the usual pre-registration and money questions, you're going to have a lot of questions about basic amenities. And your tent campers, your pavilion campers, and your RV campers need different things and will ask different questions. If possible, it's nice to have separate tent and RV camping organizers, but if that's not possible or you have a first-time RV coordinator, the Antier RV Eventing private group on Facebook has a couple of people who put together a very good guidance document for you, and they can share it, and they also try to put it on the Event Steward website, although it's hard to find there. So they're going to ask questions like, hey, are there bithies or flush toilets? Are there showers? Is there water? Are there trash cans? Are there utilities for RVs? Things like that. Same thing for food. Even if you're not serving food, you should probably tell people we're not serving food, but you can pack a lunch, or but there will be food trucks, but you could go to a nearby restaurant. If you're having a feast, it is nice to get the menu with the ingredients list out before you open pre-registration, because people with dietary restrictions, food intolerance, or food allergy need to know that in order to make an informed decision. If you're doing a potluck, you will need to ask everyone to bring a list of ingredients with their dish for the same reasons. Always remind feasters to bring a feast kit. Please define it for them. Always remind potluck bringers to have some sort of a serving utensil. And event steward tip. Really nice to have some extra serving utensils, even if they're from the dollar store. Somebody is going to forget theirs. I guarantee it. And some extra eating dishes for that poor newcomer who had no idea they were supposed to bring a feast kit, or for someone that just had so much to pack and that one box didn't get loaded in the car. If you didn't bring it yourself, have gate know who to ask. Probably have a herald announce to the room, oyez, oyez, does anyone have extra feast gear? The answer will always be yes. If you have classes, the first thing you need is to sign up instructors, and the second thing you're going to have is to sign up students or to tell students they don't need to sign up. As soon as you put out a call for instruction, for teaching, they're going to ask, what kind of class do you want? How long do you want? 1 hour, 2 hour? Is this a workshop style? Is it indoor? Is it outdoor? Is there a kitchen so I can do culinary? Is there a projector for my computer? There's reasons why I'm doing this on the computer and why it's hard for me to take this to events that are really low tech. Again, as soon as you talk about classes and people are excited and they know that there's a class they want to go to, they want to know how to sign up. Or if there's a small fee for materials, they want to know how and when they're supposed to pay it. Similarly, if there's going to be a competition or a tournament, people like to know as much as possible, maybe what kind it is or what the format is going to be. Make sure you include any deadlines. Oh, and again, for instructors and tournaments, it's really good to advertise to your neighboring branches. It brings in A&S people and teachers and fighters who otherwise wouldn't be as easily accessible to your populace and lets them have more variety in their game. So try to really spread out a little bit and let the neighboring baronies, the people that love and have passion, let them come to you and bring that to your populace, to your branch. If you have restrictions, like only people from the local populace for a championship, or maybe this is a special tournament for fighters that have never won before, maybe this is a tournament for squires, maybe this is period kit, please be very clear up front so no one gets to the event and then gets turned away at the door, and please try to be positive. It is better to say this opportunity is open to members of our branch. It is not as nice to say everybody else need not apply, go away. Yes, I exaggerate, but you see what I'm saying. Try to be nice. Now, the last few weeks, most of your planning is done. You probably know who's doing your instruction, and people know if they want to come to your event or not. This is when you're, 1, going to post more, and 2, start bringing in the final populace. This is a great time to get your volunteer list out there. People are excited. They know they want to come. Now's the time to ask them for an hour or 2 of their time. Sometimes there's a benefit for volunteers. Maybe servers eat free in the kitchen. If you're having any sort of teaching or classes or bardic performances or competitions, announce them with their SCA names. Please, please protect their modern, personally identifiable information. But announce who's going to be competing. If they're coming from a nearby branch, announce it there. Tell people, they're like, hey, you're not in the competition, but come and cheer on your friends. Come and cheer on your fellow populace members. Highlight what's coming. If you can get photos of anything that's going to be presented or taught or demoed, and you can get permission to use it, use it. People love pictures. We're going to have a pottery demo. Here we have a lovely picture of our potter set up at another event, and this is kind of what it's going to look like. And then in the last week, your job should really be done. At this point, it's really just last-minute craziness. In an ideal world, we wish that the schedules were out weeks and weeks in advance, but realistically, I've found that these are generally done at the 11th hour. So get the schedule out at the 11th hour. Get it out as broadly as you can, and always mention that there could be changes. Unforeseen changes or changes due to unforeseen circumstances will be announced on site. If you have special rules for parking or special entrances for the ADA or the RVs, a parking map and a reminder are really helpful. And then finally, it helps to remind people of anything they really should pack, like sunscreen for a sunny day or a feast kit or a chair. And remind them as well of things they probably shouldn't pack, like a whole bunch of candles that use actual fire. Don't wait until they get to the event, unpack their beautiful table, set it up, and then someone has to come by and tell this poor person, oh, no, you can't have any of that. Again, advertising. We're there to make people's day better. Finally, speaking of advertising, if you can find information for newcomers in their first event, I would always consider linking it. You are welcome to use ours from the Barony of Dragon's Lair. You are welcome to make something like it, use ours as a template or an idea. There's a couple from the SCA. There's a lot out there. Find your favorite. Just consider linking it to every single event somewhere in the webpage and encourage newcomers to have fun. Okay, that is it. I hope that this helps you. I know it's a little bit of a whirlwind. I've been doing this a few years now, and we have learned the hard way. We have learned it all the hard way. I hope that this will make sure that you don't have to. And again, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I will monitor and reply, I promise.